learning from the experience and learning from history and things of that sort. And I think that's one thing that I really try to impress upon our young people, our younger generation of storytellers, in terms of that particular story, while at the same time trying to empower and motivate them to tell their own stories, because we have a whole new generation of storytellers that are coming into play now, which is really, really cool. It's cool to see that.
Hey, 2H2Fers, we're back. It's Thursday. You know how we do. We're still wearing the same clothes from Tuesday, but it's so much closer to the weekend. Victor is still with us. Once again, hashtag Hispanics in Hollywood, hashtag Latinos in La La Land. I really like it. I'm going to keep using it. Hey, sit back, buckle up. Let's go. Too hard, too fast. Boom.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome to Too Hard, Too Fast.
Too hard, too fast.
Too hard, too fast.
Too hard, too fast.
Welcome to Too Hard, Too Fast.
All right, for you guys listening out there, for you guys who are just accustomed to just sitting back, kicking back, and watching things on the tube, whether it's a movie, whether it's a comedy or dramedy or whatever, and you see someone who looks like you on screen, particularly if you have brown skin, raza, cultura, Latino, that sort of thing, and you don't stop to think in terms of like, how did that happen? How did we get here? Well, stick around, because I will learn you in terms of how we got there, okay? Woo! The truth about Latinos in Hollywood, only here, Too Hard, Too Fast. Let's do it.
Podcast. Woo! Boom.
The podcast of the century.
Right. When you have young kids, whether it's in elementary or middle school, and I love working with these kids because they have not yet been tainted by all of these societal norms, by all of the things that society says or shuns us to talk about and things of that sort. Kids in elementary, the kids in middle school, they write from the heart. And I think sometimes as adults, we forget that. And I think sometimes we're too concerned with, what are people going to think? Are they going to like this story? Is this story going to sell? Am I going to make money with that? Instead of just like, hey, write what moves you. And these younger kids, that's how they approach their writing process. They write what they know. And I thought, how smart is that? Absolutely. For example, we were studying, a lot of these kids, are really interested in different kinds of stories. And dude, I love Shakespeare. And these kids shun away from it. They're like, oh, I don't know. That's the dude that speaks funny, right? He talks really funny. I'm like, yeah, he does. But hey, so I introduce them to Shakespeare, and I'll tell them what they really like, because I introduce them how to insult other people using Shakespearean lexicon. They love that part of the lesson. So hang around, Worm. I'm going to show you too.
All right, show me, man. I want a lesson. People want a lesson. So, we want this.
And I think, especially like, for example, middle school, these kids, they're middle school, their hormones are just starting to come into play. The boys are starting to pay attention to the girls, but not as much as the girls are starting to pay attention to the boys. Right. And so, I guide them along these playwriting, script writing sessions and stuff like that and everything. And all the girls write about the same thing, relationships and stuff like that. It's just like dripping with telenovela stuff, and the boys are writing about, video games and sports and soccer and blah, blah, it's like, that's where they're at. The girls think they're terribly boring, and that sort of thing. But then, when I introduce them to something like R&J, so I take the idea that Shakespeare started with Romeo and Juliet, and we call it R&J, and it's R&J growing up in the barrio. So basically, we're still using the same story. It's still Romeo and Juliet, and in Shakespeare, they're at this ball, and they're all in masquerade until Romeo comes in, and he's from a rival gang, and he sees Juliet, and they fall in love. And I'm like, okay, so guys, how do we change this? How do we change this to, like, talk about who we are in our culture? And we talk about it. We said, oh, why don't we do this? So we create together, and we're like, hey, I know what? So instead of a ball, we're at a quinceañera, and the girl who's celebrating her quinceañera, is really is really attracted to this boy who's like from maybe the West Side or something like that, which is a big no-no, for mom and dad. It's like, they're like, no, ¿qué tienes? Estás loca? No way. So we take stories that are based on classical literature, we kind of like turn them inside out, and I try to help the kids understand, okay, now give it a twist, make it your own, personalize it, talk about who we are as a people, or a cultura, things of that sort. And they're coming up with some crazy things, and crazy in a good way, and I think it's important to do this because this is our next generation of storytellers. And even now, so I'm telling these same kids, I'm like, dude, you know what? I was teaching middle school maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I started off at this one school with these 6th graders, and I was with them for 3 years. And now these kids are in high school, right? And they follow me on social media and everything. And these kids, several of them are really into, they are hooked. They're still like, listen to my story, Mr. T. That's what they call me. And what do you think about the script, Mr. T? And I have some kids. I have this one kid who's like, he came up to me once and he said, Mr. T, I want to do this. I really want to do this. I'm like, all right, we'll do well in class. Here's your homework, blah, blah, blah. He goes, no, you don't understand, Mr. T. I really want to do this. I said, where can I take classes, blah, blah. And I thought, okay, all right, then this is what you need to do. So, I had to get his parents' permission, and we met and we talked and stuff like this. This dude, this little kid, he has his own agency now. He shot 3 national commercials. He's auditioned for Disney and Nickelodeon. This kid here in San Antonio is doing really, really well, especially for this kid who, just came from nowhere, didn't have a lot of a high level of self-esteem. And all it takes is just one person to tap you in the shoulder and say, hey, you can do this. All right. You can do this. Don't worry about what everybody else says. All right. Make it your own. So opening doors for a new generation of storytellers. I think that's
that's one thing. Like one thing I want to break as a person, or as somebody that's Hispanic, this idea where just because you're Hispanic, you're not capable, or you shouldn't have crazy dreams of like being an actor, or being, like I said earlier, being in radio, being TV, or having like the best podcast on earth, right? So like
we're on our way. But I think it's our family's fault. It's our family's fault too, because they always, you always have primos or tias or your parents sometimes. Like,
that's right.
It's not realistic, or how much hard work it's gonna be, or what are the chances? It's like, oh my gosh.
Exactly.
So I don't tell them crap. I just do my own thing. That's why I left El Paso, because I'd rather try and fail. It's all good.
Yes. Try and fail versus like fail because you believe somebody that said,
or not. Yeah.
And
some people don't try because they're like, oh, I guess they're right.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to bring in, like, it wasn't my like thing of like, my parents always said you can do it if you do the work, do it. But I know a lot of friends that their parents said, no, it's not for you. And it's like, so your own parents are like telling you can't because you're brown, or you can't because, come on, you're from a small town. You're really going to make it in Hollywood, or, it's like, just try. That's what I want, is like, just do it. If you want to do it, fail. And then
my advice, don't tell your parents anything. Don't tell your family anything. Just go and do it.
Or your friends. Like you said, you need that one person. Doesn't matter who it is. That's right. So especially if they trust you, like if this kid trusts you and they told you this and you told them something different, like, hey man, I was there. It was hard. Like, I don't know if if you did that, who knows how much you would have broken this kid.
Exactly.
And now, but you did the opposite, and look what happened.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Perfect. Thanks. See, people agree with me, Worm. Every now and then I have good stuff to say.
Good, but at the Cosmo, you ruined his train of thought.
I know, right?
Mr. T, I'm gonna start calling you Mr. T because
that's awesome.
What do you prefer?
It doesn't matter. Hey, as long as it's good, man.
Yeah. kind of going back though, so your acting career. Well, I don't know if George wanted to ask more about some of your movies or acting career, but because you went from an acting career to being an educator, right, or a professor, and now
I did.
now you're in elementary. I guess can you tell us kind of those?
Yeah,
that timeline?
absolutely. So when COVID happened, when this whole thing happened, everything just kind of like, well, obviously, and everyone knows this, everything just stopped everywhere, including the entertainment industry. And right now, California has it really bad, and everybody knows that. It's just a hot place right now, and as far as the industry is concerned, there's not a lot of action happening right now, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to stop. Take opportunities, make them happen, invent things. This is a perfect a time to brush up on skills, whether it's behind the scenes or practice at your writing skills. Finish that script that you started years ago and have been putting off for a while. There's still lots of things that can be done so that when this is, knock on wood, finally over, hey, you have product, you have something to show and sell. Hey, it doesn't mean that you can't do it right now. And even the thought of here's what I tell a lot of younger people. I said, back in the day when I was doing this, you needed an agent to make this happen. You couldn't negotiate anything without an agent. Today, well, it does help. It helps to have an agent, someone who has the power to open doors for you, create contacts for you, and go from point A to point B to point C and so forth. But if you don't have that right now, to all our young would-be dreamers who are thinking about doing something like this, maybe it's writing, maybe it's performing, maybe it's directing, one, become a keen observer of life, study, avoid judgment, try to assess why people behave and act and react in the manner in which they do. Keep a journal. I'm a firm believer in that. Journal things, ideas, thoughts, stories that come to your mind. If somebody saw my journal, I think they would commit me because nothing makes sense and everything just looks like, oh my God, he's got problems, and maybe I do.
We're mixed fun.
There you go.
I got my stuff.
Yeah, man.
See, we're from the same universe, bro.
Yeah, that's not how I was raised.
You were my professor. You taught me well. I may have skipped.
There you go. There you go. I feel gratified, Jorge. I feel gratified.
Hey, was he your worst student?
That's another episode altogether.
All right.
I think there was. We did have a guest, a friend of ours on the show, and he said the first time he met me was in your class, and he was trying to talk to me, and I was just kind of like, hey man, I don't know what you're trying to tell me right now, but I'm just trying to get out of this class. And I had grabbed my stuff and I left. And he was like, oh dang, class isn't even over left yet, and he just left. And I was like, and that was my first impression on him. So maybe I was the worst student.
The truth comes out always.
Oh,
It always comes
he
out.
admitted it. So there you go.
And
He
now,
admitted it right there, right there.
and now, please do not leave early from this podcast. Now that the shoe is on the other foot.
Now, Mr.
Oh,
Trevino, what was your favorite memory at Olu?
At Olu, my favorite
Do
memory.
you have a favorite memory?
Actually,
or
there were
memory?
several, man. I think my favorite memories are always centered around students. Faculty were cool and stuff like that and everything, but it was the students that kept me there. It was the students who made me feel like it wasn't a job. It was something I really looked forward to going to. The students were just, I don't think I've ever been one of those teachers or educators that are in this for the money, because there is none. It's about being passionate about sharing what with other students or younger versions of you who are also interested and passionate in what you are, and it's about helping them, guiding them, mentoring them, and sometimes not giving them all the answers, sometimes just prodding them along, just giving them enough information just to help them think about okay, so how would I process this? What do I do? And just giving these kids just enough information to guide them along, but not giving them everything they need to know, so that they walk away with something. There's something that they learn. There's something that they walk away with in the process. So there was one student at Olu. I hope he doesn't mind my sharing his name on this. So he's actually a teacher now. He's actually a drama teacher now. So I remember I was directing a show at Olu, and I was like, where am I gonna find? I've always liked this play. I did this show in Los Angeles at this major theater in Los Angeles, and I always thought I want to do this in San Antonio because I think Raza can relate to this. It takes place on Day of the Dead. There's this lead character who thinks he's God's gift to women until he meets this woman who turns the tables on him. It just everything about this story resonates with our cultura. With the South Side, the West Side. I thought this is perfect. What I could not find was the right guy to play this role. Right? I was like, it has to be someone who's like in decent shape, because he has to be somebody that girls are actually gonna look at. He has to be a good actor, a really good actor. He has to know how to play girls and stuff like this and everything. He has to be good with comedy. I mean, the bill to fit the bill with this character was, I had auditions, had 3 auditions successfully. I wasn't finding anybody, and
I feel like
everyone knows who you're talking about. Yes, people, it was me. It was me. Hey, I don't like that you guys are laughing. Hey, I don't like that laugh.
I was gonna make the same joke and you beat me to it.
Yeah. That's right. Worm had that bod at that time. Okay, all right. So
at the time. Now I have a dad bod. So.
It's okay, Worm. You got time, dude. You got time.
No, he lived that life. When he came to Our Lady of the Lake, he was the captain of the swim team, just chiseled.
I was like an Indio, dude. Aztec Worm. That's what they used to call me.
Then he had that max meal plan and stuff.
He's on the COVID meal plan. Yeah, it happens to all of us.
And
then
George introduced me to stuff like this, and it just went downhill after that.
Yeah, damn that COVID.
No, but who's this guy?
Exactly. Well, so okay. One day I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I just need to pick a different show, whatever, right? So I always used to work out at the UAC, either in the mornings or late afternoons. And one late afternoon, I'm working at the UAC. And for those of you who don't know, the UAC, that's like our version of the gym at Olu, right? And so I'm working there and everything. And I saw one of my students there, and he's working out as well too. And I casually mentioned, I said, yeah, well, we're having auditions for but he had never really been in theater or drama, like ever. I said, we're having auditions again if you're interested, and I was like, whatever, I'm just going to tell everybody and anybody. And so he says, well, I've never done that before, but yeah, I guess, why not, and he's very, oh my God, I can't just, he's very kind of like happy-go-lucky, and he'll try anything once and blah, blah, that sort of thing. And the more I got to know him, I started recognizing similar characteristics that he shared with the character. And I was like, well, that's really, he had no idea I was doing the self-assessment, right? So he goes to the audition, I give him the script, and he did well. He did good. He gave a really good reading. And then I asked him to put the script down, and I just gave him an improvisation. An improvisation, for those who are listening and don't know, it's like I give you a prompt, and you just follow along with the prompt, no script, and you just use your own words and body language to kind of like describe what your vision of the character would do in that, And so I gave him a prompt, I gave him an improv, and he was really good. He was really, really good. And so we started rehearsals, and it was interesting, for a while. But he got so good. And he put in so much time. He was the first one to get to rehearsal. He was the last one to leave, always asking questions. He goes, I don't know, I'm getting this. Help me with this. What does this mean? And blah, 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 and stuff like this and everything. And he became so committed and so devoted to all of this. He was really, really good. and it was one of the most, I think, one of the strongest shows that we did there. You know, yeah, yeah. His name is Juan. Juan
Say it,
Calero.
but
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I don't think he would mind because and you guys can find Juan. And Juan is very outgoing. Check him out on Facebook. He's really an awesome human being. I think he would make an awesome guest actually for this podcast.
Get him, George.
He's really awesome. He's really amazing. And I can't speak too highly of him because he's just amazing. He's just an amazing, amazing human being, an amazing actor. So now he's teaching drama. He's a drama teacher at a local high school here. And dude, just to listen, just check out his thread on Facebook. He's hilarious. He's funny. He's hilarious. You need to know this guy, and you probably do from your days at Olu. Yeah,
we weren't friends or acquaintances, but I remember seeing him around.
Check him out. You should contact him. He's an awesome human being. He's a great actor. I remember one time, and he will tell you this. Juan will tell you this. He goes, "Yeah, Vic, I remember our rehearsals, and I remember those days." He goes, "I remember one day I was so frustrated with the role, and you were frustrated too, Vic. You were frustrated too. I went up to you and I was looking for direction, Vic. And I remember that you paused and you looked at me and you said, Juan, just be better." I was like, yeah, I own that. I remember that. But he's awesome. He's doing really well now. And you probably recognize him in some commercials that he's been doing around town. He's a father. This guy should have his own show as well, too. I highly encourage that you contact him. He would make a great guest.
We will. Or I say I will because Worm doesn't do any of the legwork.
Nah, I just show up, man. I just show up and drink. That's how I support George.
I just don't. The thing is, I tell him all you have to do is show
I
up
think I'm a good
and
friend.
have something to say, and show up before the guest. And obviously, he's already failed twice in a row. He showed up before he did.
I gotta show my boss, man.
But I didn't want to skip over the Pee Wee because that was like something I knew as a child. But obviously, honestly, I never made the connection. Like I said, I had you for voice and diction, and I took a performance class with you. And I think at the time, like you said, that you felt like you were going to be a performer, and you had it in you, like that feeling. For me, I've always had this feeling where I feel like there's something in me that's supposed to do something big, something good. I still don't know what it is. I don't know if this is what it is, but whatever I'm doing, like something's supposed to happen. Like I've always had that feeling. But acting I knew wasn't for me. But I enjoyed the idea of it, and I took the class because I wanted to see where it went. It wasn't for me, and I think you put me on the back end of. I wasn't an actor in the play that we were working in the class, and that kind of pissed me off. Because I'm one for wanting attention, and I was like, well, if I'm working in the class and I'm not in the play,
he called you a culo. I remember that.
I was like, but it was also on me. I wasn't trying. I wasn't trying to be an actor. I wasn't trying. But I think something that happened there, I was like, I want more of this. I want to be able to, whatever I do next, I want to be part of the show versus behind the show, you know?
Right.
And then also with voice and diction, I still like how you carry my voice out and how I portray it, whether it's in like before the podcast, I had another YouTube channel where we went out to the community and try to find people that are making a positive impact. And I did that with my wife, who you know, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, she said, if you don't make this shout out, I'm going to hate you. Jennifer is best friends with your daughter, and she wanted to make sure that I put that out there. Her
Ashley
and your
was telling me
daughter.
the same thing. My daughter was telling me the same thing. Yeah.
It's like, make sure you say it. Make sure you say it.
There you go.
But with that, like everything I did, that there was you still made some impact in me, whether I was leaving class early or not. The things you said made an impact, and I would even tell you. I remember. I don't know why this sticks with me, but I remember we were standing in line, and we were supposed to act something out, and you go, "Hold on, guys! Like seriously, when have you ever seen a movie, a TV show, or a play where everybody stands in the same lane? Like you guys can stagger yourself. You have this whole stage. Use it. Why are you guys standing in line? You know?" And so that's always stuck with me. Like something so simple like that is like you can make things so much better by just staggering yourself. So stuff stuck with me. Whether I make fun of the fact that I was leaving or whatever. The thing you made an impact with me, so I appreciate that.
That's awesome.
Now I forgot where I was going with this. But
That's all good. Oh, you were talking about Pee-wee's. Pee-wee's Playhouse.
people, yeah. So what that I do, I remember never made the connection that you were the soccer player in there, and I never made the connection at first that you were in American Me, like until somebody goes, "You know who your professor is?" Puts in the DVD, goes, "That's your professor." How is that your professor and you haven't made it a thing? It's like, I didn't even think about it. Like it was just like I'm skipping class. No, I'm just kidding. I was like,
See what
that's
you
your
get for
professor.
skipping class? Damn
Yeah.
you.
And it was a guy that wasn't part of the school. Like he just knew. I guess he saw you or something, and whatever, or I don't know how.
Yeah.
But he goes,
Yeah.
"Oh, can you get an autograph from me?" I was like, I don't think he likes me. So I was like, no, I'm not gonna go with your DVD and say, can you autograph this for my friend?"
Would you have done it though, Mr. Trevino?
I'm like, oh, I remember you. You're the dude that always leaves my class early, right? And you want me to sign what?
I was like, I don't think I could do it. But so I do want to go back to Pee Wee. Like, what was the experience there? Was that one of your first biggest things you've done? Because that show was huge.
Yeah, for TV it was. I remember my younger brother at the time, in LA on Saturday mornings watching Pee-wee's Playhouse, and I'd never really seen it. I was always focused on I was involved in theater or some sort of a rehearsal or something. So I was hardly ever at the house, particularly watching TV on a Saturday morning. And one Saturday morning, I saw him watching this show that looked kind of weird, kind of zany, and it was like I'm like, "What are you watching?" He goes, "Hey, it's Pee-wee's Playhouse. It's pretty cool. You should check it out." I was like, I don't know. Well, like about a week or two later, I get a call from my agent saying, "Hey, they're casting for a series regular for this show." And for our listeners who don't really understand what that is, a series regular is more than just like a character comes in and does a show for one time. A series regular is someone who's going to be part of the storyline, part of the characters that appears, in almost every episode and things of that sort, which means there's a lot more money involved. So your ears perk up when you hear something like that. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, show me the script and stuff. And so I read the audition script, and it was I didn't quite get it at first. So I started my homework. I started watching as much Pee-wee's Playhouse as I could. And it seemed very zany. All the characters were like bigger than life and stuff like that. And I need to add that at the same time, I had just finished my classical training master's program at UCLA, and I was all about, talk about voice and diction. I was all of, classical literature and Shakespeare. I loved Shakespeare, and I did a lot of Shakespearean roles throughout LA County at this time. I remember showing up at the audition and almost just turning my car around and walking away. There were so many guys in line waiting to audition. And I was like, oh man, I don't even know if I want to do this, And so I remember calling my agent And I was like, Chris, there's like the line goes all the way around the block, Chris. I don't even think this is worth it. He says, Vic, you're an actor, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, what else do you have to do this afternoon? I was like, all right. So I took out the script and I just waited. It was a long ass audition. And so I went to the first, that was the first audition. Pee Wee Herman was not there. I was reading for the casting director. Then I didn't hear anything for a couple of months. And then Chris gets a call again.
Your audition with us?
What's that?
Can you do your audition with us? Do you remember?
later, Worm.
Later,
And so I was like, about 6 months later, I get a call, and the number of guys at the audition was dramatically decreased. You know, there was like 25 guys, and we were doing the same thing. You know, and it was the casting director and the producers. And I don't know in the next room in the video if Pee Wee was there or not. I don't know, but I do know that we got a lot more instruction at that time, and then did it. I went home, forgot about it. And then a week later, I got another call. And this time Pee Wee was there. And I was nervous. And I don't know why I got nervous. And I told myself, he's just a person just like you, just like you, just like you. He's just a person just like you. And so I did the audition. Remember, I was doing all this classical training and stuff like this and everything. And then, you know, that's how I did my audition. And he stops me midway and everything. He says, hey, Vic. First of all, he goes, I need you to forget everything that you learned about classical theater training at UCLA. He goes, it's valuable. He goes, it's helpful, but not for this. He goes, I want you to think I want you to give yourself permission to be as big as you can. It's like a human cartoon almost. And when he said that, a light bulb went up in my mind. And I was like, that totally took me in a different direction. And then I just took ownership of Ricardo in an entirely different way.
¿Qué te pareció, Ricardo?
How was that, Ricardo?
Muy bien, Pee-wee.
And I said, hey, is it okay if I use Spanish? And he says, yes. He goes, in fact, if you can speak Spanish, I would like to incorporate Spanish into this role. And from that moment, I was like, yes. And that's when I knew, okay, I want this. I want this. And so I did. I did some improvs with Spanish.
All I got there was, hold on a minute, Pee-wee.
What I said was, let me go over it once more. Déjame explicártelo una vez más, so the boys and girls can see how it's done, para que los niños vean cómo se hace.
And I remember that Miss Yvonne, the character who plays Miss Yvonne, was there, Lynn Stewart, and she's just an amazing human being. And so I did that, and then after that, there was yet another callback, and I think there was 3 of us, and I was nervous. At that point. I felt like it was important for whoever got this that it was a Latino. And there were 3 of us. All 3 of us were Latino. You know, I was glad to see that this was happening. I thought it'd be cool if it was me, but at least it's a Latino that's in the running, okay? And it was me. And so then it was working with Pee Wee and working with some of the other series regulars, you know, like Larry Fishburne. I'm sorry, Lawrence Fishburne now, you know, it's like, and Miss Yvonne, just wonderful artists. And what I really liked about them was like, there is this amazing, phenomenal comedy troupe in Los Angeles. And for those of you who are not familiar, you know, just Google the Groundlings in LA, and they have a history. Like every major comic that has come out of the Groundlings has excelled in one way or another on TV or film or things of that sort, you know. And that's where this idea came from. Pee Wee Herman, Paul Reubens, started the idea for Pee Wee's Playhouse at the Groundlings. It was a small little stage show. Now, the Groundlings you can have some shows or skits that are a little risque, a little more pointed towards the adult, spectrum, and it very much was. And even Pee-wee's Playhouse was, because there was a lot of like things that kind of went over the kids' heads, but the adults were like, "Wait, what did he just say?" Things of that sort.
I made Ricardo a logbook so he can keep track of each time he scores in a game.
To Ricardo, my favorite tight end.
So it was kind of cool and kind of funny that way. The show was first done in New York for the first 3 years, and the first Latino on that show was the Roland, who portrayed Tito, who was like a lifeguard on the show. And I think he did 2 seasons before he wanted to return to college. He wanted to study medicine, from what I understand. I never met him, but he opened that door to like a Latino being in the show and that sort of thing, which I thought was cool. And then when the show moved to Los Angeles, that's when a whole series of auditions were being held for the role of Ricardo, and there were a lot of things a lot of doors opened for me when that came out. I remember I was doing a show in Orange County, California. It was about like almost an hour's drive north of I was doing a play at this major theater. It was during Christmas. And I remember I had to get some Christmas gifts, and I was involved in theater and doing shows, and I had time to do Christmas shopping. So at the time, there was a store called Toys R Us. It doesn't exist anymore. So I'm walking through Toys R Us, and I'm looking for just like, I don't know, something. And I'm in this area where all these like figures, like superhero figures and stuff like that. And I freeze. I stop in my tracks when I see this figure that has my face on it. And I'm looking at this, and I slowly walk up to it, and I grab it from the thing, and it's a Ricardo doll. And then right next to it is Pee Wee Herman, and then there's the other characters from the show. And I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, oh wow, this is me. So I bought all 20 of them.
Do you still have any of them?
And I'm looking at this thing, and it's like, and recently I checked on eBay, they go for $30 right now, just an FYI, okay?
Nice. Buy some.
Do you still have any of them? Do you still have them?
I do actually. And if you Google like Ricardo doll or whatever and stuff like that, okay, first of all right, the doll does not look like me. Red lips, it's got huge arms and stuff like this. And
well,
then
come
it
on,
says,
man. We know you have huge arms. So.
Yeah, show us those biceps, man.
But one way that we're different, though, Worm, is that it says "Made in China" on the where? No, not there. I mean, like on the back.
No, not it's not hecho in Mexico. Sure.
Oh my God! Yeah, so overall, that was an awesome, amazing experience, and to be a part of those artists, was really empowering. And I think it really gave me the belief in that, hey, I can do this too. I can write too, just like them. I can tell stories just like them. I don't think I had that same degree or caliber of self-esteem that they had, but I learned through working with them. I mean, these were like tops in their field in terms of the writing and performing and stuff like that. And also, I thought it was so like, but how do you get this story told on a network? How do you get the networks interested? How do you get the networks to buy your, and then I thought, it's not magic. There's no trickery involved. It's just believing in your project, writing from the heart. Don't write for other people. And I think that's the biggest mistake that a lot of like would-be writers, especially in LA, or people who are trying to like make it, they try to second guess, what are they looking for? What's going to make the most money? What's the next blockbuster? It's like, nobody knows that. I couldn't tell you, what story or storyline's going to win at Cannes or Sundance or the next Oscars. These are storytellers who simply write from the heart. don't try to find your audience. The audience will find you. Just tell the story in the best way that you can, and that's what we do. That's what we do.
I like that. I like that. And one of the last thing I really want to ask, and Worm has a few more questions, but one thing you said was people wanted to change your name, wanted to change your attitude. And you're like, no, that's just me. Do you think that nowadays, like present time, regardless of pinche COVID, you think Hollywood still wants to change our names? If we go in there with a Rodriguez, a Trevino, Lopez, do you think that now it's like, hey, we got you? Given in mind, thinking the person I always remember is James Roday, San Antonio native, who his real name was James Rodriguez, but he says a lot that he changed his name. He stars in lots of new shows. He was in Psych. He's been in movies. Right now, I think he's in a lot of Little Things. I think that's called. Anyways, he changed his name because he didn't want to be casted in the typical Mexican role, Hispanic role, which I guess you can say is the gangster, the cholo, or, So he changed his name to James Roday. He's a little more light-skinned and just recently said, I'm changing it back to Rodriguez, and I regret that I ever did in the first place. So with that train of thought, do you think that Hollywood has changed, at least progressed enough, or still trying to progress?
I think Hollywood has changed, progressed. I think it's changed, and I am no one to cast judgment, on this actor that you were just talking about. He had his reasons, and I totally understand that. And I also had fellow artists, fellow colleagues, fellow performers who chose to do that, and I respect that. That those are choices that they felt comfortable with, and I totally respect that. In the 80s and 90s, when I would walk into a casting office and the directors would look at me, and the one thing I think that I would like to get our listeners to understand is like the differences between casting in the 80s and 90s and casting now is this. In the 80s and 90s, you had to be labeled. They had to know where to put you. They had to know how to categorize you. So time and time again, I was asked the same kinds of questions. They said, so Trevino, what kind of name is Trevino? And you have to, if you don't burn bridges in this industry. You don't burn bridges. And I'm like, well, I said, it's, I'm Latin. I'm Mexican and Spanish. It's Latino. And they said, it almost sounds Greek or ethnic. Could you play Greek? I said, yes, I could play Greek. I said, I can also play a myriad of other characters. I said, if you'll notice on my resume, there were times when I would walk in, I had my Master of Fine Arts, and the difference between a master's and a Master of Fine Arts is that a Master of Fine Arts requires ultimately much more specificity, much more research, much more work, in your area of study. And mine was acting, and so there was 3 really arduous, long years of study with top-notch people. These weren't just like traditional professors. I studied with people who were top-notch artists who would come from New York or Broadway or Los Angeles, and we were studying with them, so that when I was asked in casting sessions, like, oh my goodness, I can still remember this like yesterday, it would annoy me when they would say, I would read the script and then they would say, okay, now can you do it with an accent? That used to bother me. It used to bother me. And I remember one time I was like, and I didn't get the job. It bothered me. And I said, yeah, I can do it with an accent. I said, I can do it in German, French, Italian. I can do it in Australian, and I'd studied dialect and accents for 2 years. And I remember the casting director looking at me and saying, you know what I mean? And it was at that point, I didn't even I didn't care. I just didn't care about that. I was just so frustrated and annoyed that yet again, I still have to fit this, I have to be put into a box. I have to be put into a category before you even consider me for a role, up to this point, dude, I had played landscapers. I had played, questionable characters of every sort, if you were a male in the 80s or 90s, you were delegated to playing roles such as, rapists, thieves, things of that sort. If you were a girl, you were always a maid, or a lady of the streets, things of that sort, and I was like, no, I can play other things. I remember, scraping off enough money to create my demo reel. And I did some research. I purposefully sought out this guy who created some awesome, amazing demo reels. I looked at some scenes. One was like a doctor, another one was an attorney, and just like these white collar things. I remember going up to the guy and I said, "So this is what I want on my reel." He goes, "Are you sure?" He goes, "You don't want anything that's like Spanish or whatever?" I said, "No." No, this is what I want. The Spanish is in me already. The Spanish is me. It's my face. It's on me. I don't have to advertise my Spanish. I said, no. And I did it. And I started getting work. I started getting more work. So how does that differ from our casting process today? As I mentioned earlier, I think, not to pat myself on the back, but I think a lot of me and many other fellow artists, especially when we were working at Nosotros back in the day, when we started making noise about, in a respectful manner, about the fact that we weren't being given the same opportunities. And by that, I mean, given the opportunities to audition for the same kinds of roles that our colleagues who were of fairer skin colors were being given. And all we wanted was equal opportunity. We didn't want to be given anything. We just wanted the opportunity to, hey, can we audition for that as well too? If we're not right, as far as skill level or talent, fine, we're not right. But can we have the same opportunity regardless of our skin color? So in the 80s and 90s, casting people, and because that's where it starts. It starts with casting, it starts with writing and producing. And you had white people, who are awesome human beings perhaps, but as far as knowing the cultura, knowing how we live, think, and breathe, it's just not the same. It's not the same, so more noise started happening. And then I think members of the Academy, we've all heard of like the Academy Awards. So I remember going to, the Academy is actually a building, a huge building on Beverly Boulevard, LA. I remember going to the Academy, and as a SAG member, a Screen Actors Guild member, I would go to the third floor where the library was at, and I would just scour through scripts. I'm looking through all the members and stuff like this and everything. And the Academy was a huge, just learning playground for me in terms of how does this work? How does this industry work? And I was just looking through databases of like artists with Spanish surnames. I'm looking at them and I'm thinking to myself, wow, there's a lot of us here. And very few of us are even like working. And it is not because we don't want to or not trying. It's because we're not being given the same opportunities, so we started making noise respectfully, and bringing attention to the fact that we were not being given the same opportunities. We did not want a handout. We were not asking for that. We just simply wanted the same opportunities to audition and read, as our colleagues and fellow artists who just happen to be white, were being given. That's all we wanted. And slowly over the years, when more of us started sitting behind some of those desks, when some of us started slowly becoming some of those decision makers, designers, performers, directors, producers, things started changing over the years, so that now diversity in casting is not only something that's being considered. Diversity in casting all today now, it's almost a requirement if you want your project to move forward, which is awesome and amazing, and I'm thrilled to see that happen. You know, I'm proud of the fact that we were kind of like shakers and movers in the 80s and 90s during that time. You know, so I mean, I know a lot of these younger actors that are out there, they have no idea. They have no idea. You know, the time, the effort, the sweat that went on behind, you know, holding a picket sign and standing in front of Paramount, or standing in front of the casting office and trying to pass out leaflets and trying to make noise. No one knows that. No one knows that, you know. But they're in those series now, and they're doing those roles now, and they're doing those feature films now, you know, and they have a voice, and I'm happy for that. I'm happy for that.
And yeah, how you were saying, not to pat myself on the back, but you know what, you do deserve that credit, and because for a lot of these people that you're mentioning, they're now that may not know of the struggle that was or the protest, but you probably influenced them. Like I said, American Me, Blood In, Blood Out. That was one of the first things we saw as culture, raza, brown people on the big screen. So regardless, like that probably influenced them in one way. I know for me, it was like seeing somebody like me, like you said, somebody like me on the screen. So regardless, like I think you deserve credit, and everybody that acted alongside of you and still continue to push forward the efforts. So, hey, pat yourself on the back.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'll take it. Thanks,
and
man.
I do want to say, like, I think at the time when I learned about James Roday, and you know, he doesn't know who I am. He's probably never gonna know who I am. So, but when I first found out, I was like, oh man, this guy's Mexican, and he's like in one of the biggest show of today.
Yeah.
I was like, dang. So it kind of like it hurt. Like I was like, dude, you're one of us, and
Yeah.
but
No.
I was like, I didn't. I had that thing, but also I was like, oh, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. Like I was like at the time, but also without even knowing. When I introduced myself here, it's like it's George and Worm, and my name's not George, it's Jorge. You've been calling me. You're the only guest that has called me Jorge, other than my wife. When my wife gets on the podcast and she starts yelling at me on the podcast and calls me Jorge.
I just call him ass. So.
And that doesn't surprise me, Worm. It doesn't surprise me.
Nope. So yeah, anytime I get called Jorge is when either my wife or my mom are getting after me. But yeah, so I've always, I don't know why, like I've came into San Antonio and people started calling me George, and I just ran with it, and I was like, okay, I'm tired of having to correct them. Yeah. And the only time I tell is like once you start saying George of the Jungle, that's when my name is no longer George. It's Jorge too.
Oh, I never make that association. No.
But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so I don't like no judgment. You know, I always say, "Hey, welcome back. It's George and Worm, whatever."
That's right. That's right.
So Jorge, my name's Jorge. Nice to meet you.
Exactly. Oh man.
There was one more thing that I want to ask you before we get to Worm's final question. Maybe he has other questions. I don't know. I've been speaking over him.
I'll limit it just 2 more. That's it.
But Jen wanted me to ask you, how do you prep for your voiceovers? She showed me, I think years ago, maybe it was 2 years ago, maybe it was last year. But I remember she was like, you know what Victor Trevino just posted on his social media? Like a reel of all his voiceovers. And we were sitting there listening to them. It's like, how is this the same guy? How is it like? So she wanted to know, how do you prep yourself to do a voiceover? And how do you like change it to where one voice doesn't always sound like the other voice?
Well, First of all, I start thinking in terms of who the character is, what the character is thinking or feeling, and what is he trying to say. And by that I mean not the actual words that are printed in the voiceover, but like what's inside. What's inside you? What are you really trying to say? What lies underneath the actual script or the words? And just flying with that, and just trying to connect with the words and not even thinking of them as words, thinking of this, what would a real human being who is dealing with these circumstances, and sometimes, and here's the trick, sometimes you're given a script by a director or a writer or whatever, and you have no idea. Like what's the backstory? Who is this person? Blah, blah, blah. And I think the one key thing, and for like listeners out there who are interested in doing something like this, well, first of all, contact me and I will help you. But for listeners out there who are interested in either like performing, the one key thing you need to think about is like, don't treat it as a script if you're performing, if you're doing voiceover or acting on stage or in a movie. Think in terms of like the magic what if. Okay, what if I was caught in this situation? What would I do? And the reason I say that is because if you use yourself in this place, using the same circumstances in which the character finds himself in, you personalize it, you make it your own. And by doing that, when you say the words, it's not going to come out like some cartoon thing or whatever. You're saying it because you can relate to what's being felt, what's being said. So in essence, what I'm trying to say is, personalize it. Use the magic what if, things of that sort. There's so many different voices. I've done so many voiceovers over the years. Some are like character types, like people in the street, or professional types, things of that sort. And if you notice, everyone sounds really different. So it's like connecting with the material, making it human, and not really don't try to pretend, just be, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. The other thing I want to be right before, I know I keep saying one more question. I do want to ask, I've seen the preview for The Good Wolf.
And
it looks awesome. I just don't know where to watch it. And I really want to watch it. Like, where can somebody find it?
I'm so glad you mentioned that. The Good Wolf and the filmmaker behind that, is an amazing human being, an amazing filmmaker. Right before COVID hit, this was way before COVID, and I was still teaching, and I was like, I really want to do something. I really want to connect with the film community somewhere here in San Antonio or Texas. And I remember looking at the Texas Film Commission's website. And for those of you who are listening and are interested in learning, about opportunities, where can I connect with things like this? Check out the Texas Film Commission's website. There are always opportunities there for crew, tech people, performers, and things of this sort. And many of them are up and coming filmmakers who are looking for people who will, one, work for free, but hey, don't shun that, because, hey, today's unknown filmmaker is tomorrow's, like, you never know. You just never know. So I was there one weekend. I was looking at some movies. At some casting notices, and I saw this thing for The Good Wolf. And there was a brief bio about, this prisoner who escapes from prison and he befriends a young boy and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, sounds interesting. And I looked at the audition dates. The audition dates were like, it was like that day. And I was like, holy crap. So should I try this? So I did. I went down there and I auditioned for the director, and it was actually a really intense audition. This character, and I love the writing because it was multi-dimensional. It wasn't like a cartoon character. This guy really knew how to write, and that's what intrigued me. The better the writing, the more ammunition you're going to give your performer to create this three-dimensional life on camera. And I rolled with it. I took my time with it, and I really envisioned myself, as this person. And the audition was over, and I remember there was silence, and he just stood at me. He just stared at me. He goes, okay. All right. Well, thank you. And then I wasn't even halfway home when I got a call saying, hey, we'd like to offer you the part. And I was like, okay, cool. Now, granted, the jobs you're going to find on this website, okay, these are all people coming from the same places as far as like, hey, we all just want to work. We all want to tell stories, so you're not doing this. If you're looking for money or fame, forget it. This is not the place to do that. But if you're looking for opportunities to learn and develop your craft, whether it's in front of or behind the camera, then I would strongly encourage you to do that. And there's other resources. There's many other places where you can do this. Contact me on my website, and I'm happy to help you and guide you. But this particular guy, and I don't like at this point in my life, I'm kind of like picky, in terms of what am I gonna spend the next 3 months on. So as much as he's interviewing me, in a way, I'm kind of like checking him out as well too. And he was just amazing, an amazing human being. And I could sense immediately that this guy really knows how to connect with people. And it shows in his writing. His writing was awesome. He gave me permission. He says, make it your own. He says, I've done what I can as the writer. Now I'd like for you as the performer to give it life in front of the camera. And I'm giving you permission to do whatever you feel you want to do. And that's all I needed to hear. We shot in South Texas. It was a long, hot, sometimes miserable days of shooting for anyone who lives in South Texas and knows the Texas heat, and all of it takes place outside in a tall tree, in a tree house, in the middle of summer. And I'm like, oh my God, it was miserable. I remember having to grow a beard and facial hair and letting my hair grow out. I was this distraught kind of like inmate who was serving time for a crime I didn't commit. I was framed, blah, 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 sort of thing. And we did it. And there were 2 younger boys in the film, one of whom was doing really well because of the work he's generated from this. We were, because of COVID, the show had difficulty finding a place to premiere. And then it found its first official premiere was at the Kanab Film Festival in Utah, and it won Best Picture there. I remember the guy who runs the festival, he contacted me on my social media, and he was like, hey, I just want to congratulate you, the film that all of you worked on just won Best Picture. He goes, we don't have a category for Best Actor, but I just want you to know that if we did, you definitely would have walked away with it. It was a really a good, strong story just all around, and I thanked him for that. I said, well, I can't claim all that because, the 2 boys who were there in the scenes with me, the writing, I said, it was a collaborative effort. And that's the one thing to remember, for young actors, young performers, if you're getting into this because you want to get famous, or you're getting into this just because, if it has to do with vanity, I would suggest doing something else, or I don't know, but it's a collaborative medium, which means that, the writer comes into play, the performers come into play, the designers come into play, the editor, everyone has their own way of shaping and structuring the story. It's not all just me, and does that happen? Yeah, of course it does. And you hear those kinds of stories all the time. But I think the best stories are those stories in which all the collaborators come together and there's a give and take. The bottom line is not about me. The bottom line is what serves the story best. Everyone has ideas. Which one of these ideas, regardless of whose idea it is, which one of these ideas serves the story best? And with The Good Wolf, it has had great reception from everyone. So where is it now, and where do you see it? The director's name is Will Shipley, and if you search for him on social media, he's an amazing guy and an amazing filmmaker and storyteller. Will Shipley, Shipley, and I don't think he minds if I share his name.
George, book him as a guest.
Hey, his
we're gonna
mom's
name drop again. So
hey, he's part Latino. His mom's Latina.
Órale.
And it's like,
I'm on then.
and he's from San Antonio. He's a great guy. Mention my name when you contact him. If you do, he's a great guy. Awesome. I think you would really like him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And he's a great guy, great storyteller. I mean, he's got stories that he can share with you. Oh my God, this guy's awesome. You'd really dig this guy. He's a cool cat. Cool cat.
But did he change his name from Suarez to Shipley? That's what I want to know. I'm just kidding.
That's a big question, right?
or Sanchez to Shipley.
That's right. Will is still looking for a home for this, okay? And until that happens, I think it's just like a wait and see kind of situation. But as soon as I find out, where it lands or where it will find its home, so to speak, I'll keep you guys connected, and so that you can share that with your viewers as well too.
Perfect. And definitely, because I really want to see it. One snippet of the preview, it looked really good.
Yeah. I'm pretty proud of it. It's one of my favorites, if I may say so. Yeah.
What's your
Maybe
movie?
after we watch it, you should come back on and we'll discuss it.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I'll bring my notes.
Yeah. No, that would be awesome to do, though. That would be cool.
It would. That's a good idea. That's a good idea for a future show. Yeah.
All right, Wormsers, it's all up to you.
All right, one last question. So, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of time to think about it, because I need to step away very quick. But give us a too hard, too fast story, whether it be about yourself or just whatever you feel comfortable sharing and stuff. Yeah.
I think the first thing. I think the one thing that because if there's like I'm all about our next generation of storytellers and our youth. That's like always been and always will be a passion of mine. So my too hard, too fast recommendation would be, if you have a dream, hold on to it. If you have a dream, don't let go of it. In spite of the fact that everyone may tell you, hey, that's not going to work out. That's not a good idea, things of that sort. And just be proactive on it. Don't let go. That's my too hard, too fast recommendation.
I like that. Good. And with that said, we're closing out another podcast down the drain. It's been fun. We've learned a lot.
Yeah.
We've learned, even though he hasn't said it, we learned that Vic Trevino, I wasn't his favorite student. And that's okay with me. I enjoyed it. I also learned enough from him. So once again, Vic Trevino, thank you for making an impact on me. Thanks for the movies that you made, the TV show that you made,
Thank you.
that you were a part of.
Paving the way.
Paving the way for the brown people, for La Raza.
From La Raza, eso, exactly. No,
Somos pocos pero locos. Oh!
No, it's all good, man. This has been my pleasure, actually. And if you have listeners out there who are interested in any of this, hey guys, contact me. I'm happy to help and guide. Check me out on my media, VicTrevinoActor.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, things of that sort. Yeah, I'm all about helping. So if you have questions about that, check me out, VicTrevinoActor.com. Let me know.
It's also in the description of, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the description. If you're listening on Spotify or any other podcast platform, check that description. It's all on there.
Awesome.
Once again, thanks for your time. Worm, what do you say?
Come out. There you go. All right. Hold up.
Nice.
So,
Hey.
so what I gotta say? Good company, good wine, good welcome can make good people. Henry VIII, Act 1, Scene 4. Ooh,
Awesome. You'd make an awesome Henry VIII, dude.
I think I would too.
I feel like that's a fat joke, but that's okay. I like it.
It is, that's right.
But with that said, guys, remember, dare to be you, dare to be weird. Bye.
Okay, guys. See you next time.
Perfect. I like that.
Can you do that again with an accent, though? Nah.
You're pissing me off, Worm. You're pissing me off.
That is so